When I bought my 50mm lens, I was asked by a family member why I use a prime lens instead of a zoom one. So I gave the usual answer of better optical quality and it being more fun. But later I was like, what makes it more fun? The optical quality? Maybe for some people, but it doesn't really explain why using prime lenses is fun. So, after some thought, I was able to find 3 things that made shooting prime lenses enjoyable. So, the first thing is somewhat connected to the technical specifications, and it's aperture. Most common prime lenses are usually f1.8, and you can't deny that having a wider aperture gives you more options creatively. Like for example, it helps having autofocus backgrounds. No, it's not the only thing that makes them, but it helps a lot. Another thing is better ability in low light. So, for example, if you need faster shutter speed, you can increase your aperture instead of your ISO, which depending on the situation is either a simple convenience or a lifesaver. A quick reminder about the aperture though, it's an option, which you can and should change depending on the situation. But even if you shoot most of your things, let's say at f4, having the ability to go higher gives you more options in the long run. You always get the option to shoot higher if you want or need to. Like for example, macro lenses are usually f2.8, but you still want to shoot them at f8 anyway. But again, you simply have the option to go higher. As for practical use, I have an example of shooting in the fall and winter. During winter where I live, it's basically nighttime by 4:30 p.m. So, unless you live somewhere when there is enough artificial lighting to recreate daylight, you need to find some other options to make sure the photo won't be just blur.nef. And since I'm in a city, I can't really take my tripod with me everywhere, so the shutter speed is mostly out of question. I can raise ISO, but after a certain point, it gets too noisy for my lighting. So what do? I widen my aperture so I don't have to shoot all my photos at ISO 12,000. And when I don't need high apertures, I simply lower them. Again, I simply have the option. Well, all that talk about having options will look kind of weird in the next section because I will talk about preferred focal lengths. Prime lenses don't zoom in or out. That's kind of their whole thing. And you would think that it would be less fun because of that. Because on a zoom lens, you can often go from wide angle to telephoto. It's versatile, but versatility does not always equal fun. As I talked about in this video, being able to do everything does not mean it will be more fun. A 28 to 400 is extremely versatile, but will it be the lens that you take with you every time? I don't think so. But even if you do, because it's your own lens, look at what focal length you're usually shooting at. You will notice that a lot of them will be at similar points, and that will be your preferred focal length. In my case, it will be 50mm, because even when I take my 24-70 with me, most of the photos will be in the 50mm range. And if the lens that I use is 50mm, the shooting experience will be much easier and more enjoyable for me. Why? Because I see in that focal length. I also won't have the weird thing when I zoom in and out to see how the photo will look like to settle on the 50mm in the end. There is simply one less thing to think about, and if you don't have to think about the focal length that you use, you can just focus on the more important things like composition, lighting, and settings. And after some time, as mentioned before, you start to see in that focal length. Even when you use a zoom lens, because this way you get a general idea how the photo will look like just by seeing the scene. It's basically muscle memory but for your eyes. This is the reason why a lot of street photographers love prime lenses, because you can react more quickly to a scene unraveling instead of having to worry about your focal length. You also won't have the problem of accidentally having your lens at the wrong focal length and then seeing that you are too zoomed in or too zoomed out. You can't photograph everything with a prime lens, so if you are on a once in a lifetime trip, a zoom lens will be definitely a better option, but for casual photography or a regular trip, it's not only fine, but actually I would say it's a preferred option. As for an example, back in May I went to Spain for 2 weeks, so like a proper opportunity to take photos. And I obviously took with me both my 24-70 and the 50mm. And you would think that I would use the zoom lens way more. But no, I use the 50mm basically all the time. With the exception of a couple of photos, I shot basically everything with the 50mm. Having a wider aperture didn't mean too much because it was extremely sunny. So why did I do it? Well, because as I said, I saw with that focal length. It was both easier and more enjoyable for me to take photos that way because I just liked it. But at certain points I did shoot at different focal lengths because, as I mentioned before, the zoom is versatile. So the talk about the versatility of the zoom lenses brings us to the third point, the challenge. With the lack of versatility comes the challenge. And we humans love challenge. With prime lenses, you can zoom in or out, so you have to move. And if you can do that, you have to find a different composition that will work. And while in the vacuum that sounds kind of annoying, it's actually enjoyable. It makes us think more about how to compose the image, which, while enjoyable, gives us a challenge and it grows us as photographers. And that's what this point is about. By limiting our ability to change focal lengths, we have to think more about the composition. And that additional work also makes us more connected to the photos that we take. Because which photo will you have the bigger connection to? The one that you just quickly took, or the one when you had to think how to make it work? Because seeing a possible photo and taking it are two completely different things. We never see the final composition before we take the photo. We might have not seen something in the background or the foreground that ruins the photo. And now you have to work around it instead of just zooming in or out. And while you can sometimes crop the photo, it's not always an option. As for the example, I will give this photo. I forgot to take my 24 to 70 with me that day, so I had to make it somewhat work. I couldn't really work back because I was on a bridge, so I decided to shoot this photo vertical instead of horizontal. I focused more on showing the size of the mountain instead of the buildings, like I originally wanted to. It made taking this photo fun and more memorable because I had to do some work to get this photo. While there are probably more things that made prime lenses fun, these are the three ones that I found to be true for myself. They might be different to you, but hey, aren't we all different? And I also do think that zoom lenses can be fun. Like I don't see myself with a prime telephoto, for example. For telephoto to be fun, I need to have some versatility there. But hey, it's just my preference. You do you. Because, as I say, shoot with what you want and can afford. So for those who watched to the end of this madman rambling, please consider subscribing and liking this video. See you next time.